Hey guys, welcome back. So today we're at the range to show you something of a unique piece of U.S. military history. In my hands, I have a standard M1 service rifle. This is chambered in 30-06, and most of you watching this video knows exactly what the M1 Garand is. And yes, I know about the argument, Garand versus Garand, and I don't care to get into that. The U.S. Army called it the Garand, so do I. So anyway, the M1 Garand served our nation for about 20 years, and easily was one of the best, if not the best, battle rifle on the field during World War II. We adopted it right around 1938. But halfway through the 1950s, the US government was looking for something different. They were looking for a different caliber, something smaller than the 30-06. So, in their infinite wisdom, they decided just to shorten the 30-06 case a little bit and stick a 30 caliber pill in there, call it the 7.62 NATO, and that's what we would adopt. When we did that, we adopted the U.S. service rifle M14. But before we get too far into that, let's take a look at the original M1 Garand, and then we'll talk about a unique variation of this rifle that the U.S. Navy did because of a couple of different factors. To charge the M1 Garand, you pull the bolt to the rear. This is a clip, all right? It holds 8 rounds of 30-06, and you insert it into the top like so. Put your hand right here on the charging handle, push the clip all the way down until it seats, let the bolt go. Usually it won't go home by itself, so you just give it an assistance, just a tap forward, and now the rifles are ready to fire. So we're gonna fire off these first 8 rounds of the day, then we're gonna show you the M14 really quick, then we'll show you this oddity that the US Navy came up with. That cha-ching, the rifle ejecting its spent and blocked clip, and the rifle's ready to receive another 8 rounds. All right, so let's take a look at the M14 here really quick, then let's break out that rare US Navy rifle. In 1957, the U.S. military was moving away from the M1 Garand rifle to this rifle. In 57, this was officially adopted as the M14 service rifle. It bears more than a passing resemblance to its predecessor, and that's because it's really a modified M1 Garand. Now, the Italians did something similar. They took existing Garand receivers and milled them, turned them into 308s that accepted a 20-round detachable box magazine, and came up with their own version of this rifle. Some would argue that it's a better rifle than this one, and we'll do a video on the BM59 here in the future. But right now, let's talk about the U.S. service rifles. So this rifle is basically an improved, if you will, M1 Garand. I'm not going to go into all the details of what they changed, but I think you can notice that there's a different gas system here. We have the exact same rotating bolt and charging handle. The sights remain the same. And why this was so appealing to the U.S. military was because training troops to transition from the M1 Garand to the M14 would be relatively simple versus going to something like the FAL, which in my opinion should have been adopted in 1957 and not this. But anyway, when they adopted this rifle, it had some problems, and the problems came about during the manufacturing phase, and they couldn't produce the rifles fast enough to meet the needs of both the U.S. Army and the Marine Corps, which were looking to rearm their troops. And so the military started to look at a stopgap measure, and they evaluated taking M1 Garands, putting a sleeve in the chamber, because it uses the exact same diameter bullet the 308 7.62 NATO does as the 30-06. They played around with the idea of putting a sleeve in the chamber, a block in the receiver, and making the rifles 308s as a stopgap measure, but the U.S. Army decided that it wasn't feasible. There was no reason to do it. The Marine Corps wasn't interested, so they just waited until enough M14s came online. Well, again, the U.S. Navy had different plans because the U.S. Navy isn't really known for having a large inventory of small arms. They needed to convert to the 308 as well, so they came up with a different solution we're going to shoot next, and we'll go into more detail. But the M14, unlike the M1 Garand, fires from a 20-round detachable box magazine. Here we have some Federal American Eagle 308, and this is sent to us by Federal for free. We'd like to thank them for supporting the channel with ammunition. If you'd like to buy some, our friends over at LAX Ammunition do sell Federal. We have a discount code down below, which will give you a discount on the ammunition, and we receive no financial kickbacks from the use of that code at LAX. So anyway, to load this, you simply rock and lock a magazine into place. The rifle that I have here is a James River Armory M14. I got this from Classic Firearms. I believe they still have them in inventory. I've had this one for quite a while. All right, to charge the weapon, it's just like the M1 Garand. You pull the bolt to the rear, release it, and it should have picked up a round out of the magazine, which it did not, because I didn't have the magazine fully inserted. It's kind of hard to do with a full magazine with the bolt forward. Now the magazine's fully seated. Should have chambered around that time. It did. We can see the brass in there. All right, so now shooting this rifle would be pretty much the exact same thing as the M1 Garand. We have the safety right here in the trigger guard. Push that forward with your firing finger and then start firing, and you'll have 20 rounds of 308 on tap. Just like the M1 Garand before it, it will lock open. When that magazine runs dry, pull the magazine out, stick a fresh one in, pull the charging handle to the rear, and repeat as many times as necessary to win the fight. So that's the U.S. service rifle M14. Now let's take a look at what the U.S. Navy came up with as their own stopgap measure that they actually did use. This, ladies and gentlemen, is a U.S. Navy converted M1 Garand to fire the 7.62 NATO. Here on the barrel, you'll see it's marked H&R, which was an original manufacturer, and then it has 7.62 NATO stamped on the barrel. I'll explain the differences between the Mod 0 and the Mod 1. This one's an early Mod 0, and what they did, in essence, to convert these to 308 from 30-06, keep in mind the bore diameter is the same, they inserted a sleeve into the chamber that shortened the chamber so it would have the same overall length as a 308, all right? So it was just a pressed-in sleeve. And they also messed around with, because it was known in these rifles, if they got really hot or just with use, that sleeve would stick to an extracted case and get ejected, and now the gun wouldn't, properly headspace or anything. Now it's not functioning properly because you're now putting a 308 case into a 30-06 chamber. But they ran into some problems, so they tried a couple of different things. First ones were just pressed in, then they tried pressing them in with Loctite, and then eventually Crane down in Indiana cut grooves into the chamber and put the sleeve in there, and none of those fixes really worked, and that brought in the Mod 1s, would be the later version of this rifle that had a replaced Springfield barrel that was actually chambered properly in 308. And as you can see, it's pretty well used, and they just took an existing Garand, sleeved it, they cut the stock a little bit, and you'll see a white piece of plastic inside there, and that's a spacer to let you know that this is a 308 rifle, or 7.62 by 51, and not a 30-06. All right, so they had to inlet the wood a little bit to get that spacer to set in there properly. And to load it, it used the exact same end block clips, but now it's holding 308s. It's pretty cool. So now to load it, the exact same process, so they didn't have to teach the sailors a new manual of arms. They used the existing inventory items. You set the end block clip in just like you would normally, put your hand there, push down, till it locks into place. Let the bolt go home and put the weapon on safe. And now you have a ready to fire 308 or 7.62 by 51 Mk2 Mod 0. Let's see how she shoots. All right, so it ejected the end block clip just like it normally would. I want to find that so I don't lose it because those things are not super expensive. Ah, there it is. But I like to keep the ones that I have. And then again, if you want to shoot, you grab another stripper clip, an end block clip. It's not a stripper clip, it's an end block clip. Set it in there. And the rifle's ready to fire. One other modification that had to be made to the 30-06 barrels was that they had to open up the gas port to let more gas come in because of the change in caliber. So that's one other thing that was changed in the conversion process from 30-06 to 308. Fire off another end block here for you guys. All right, so I don't want to get the gun too hot because I don't want that sleeve to come loose. I don't shoot this gun very often. Just wanted to bring it out and show it to you guys. Now you might be curious about the recoil impulse. Is it lighter? Is it a pussycat compared to the 30-06? No, they've increased the gas pressure to the gas system by enlarging that hole, so really the gun's getting about the same amount of gas as a 30-06 would, and so the recoil impulse feels just like a 30-06, at least to me. So it's not a muted recoil impulse at all. It's just like shooting the original 30-06 rifle. But that's a beauty. You can see the stock number here. The wood looks really good on this one. We'll flip it around here. You can see the wood on the other side. They didn't have to change anything with regards to the wood, with that exception of inletting the wood a little bit inside the receiver there so they could get the little white plastic spacer. But overall, it's just a simply beautiful rifle. And this one is built on a Springfield receiver. Pretty cool, huh? Since we're using a sleeved chamber, you're probably curious how this may have affected the accuracy of the rifle. I've never shot this rifle for groups. I've just gone out and done informal plinking with it. So we're going to shoot some Federal 150 grain American Eagle, which is what we've been shooting out here throughout the afternoon. And we got a target at 50 yards. We only have access to a 50-yard range right now until things warm up. But let's go ahead and shoot 8 rounds at a 50-yard target and see what type of a group that we get out of this rifle. Let's see if it's really negatively affected accuracy whatsoever. If you take a look at the rear sight on the gun, you'll notice that it's the same rear sight that the M1 Garand had. There's nothing really changed on it. So I don't even think they changed the drums for elevation. They just did a simple caliber conversion and called it a day. All right, let's go ahead and make the weapon ready. Put her on safe. Let's go ahead and charge it. And this is, a lot of you guys ask who makes it. This is a Coltech bag, and I really like these guys, so support them. They're very, very staunch Second Amendment advocates. All right, I'm gonna put the bag on the tall end here. And sorry guys, I gotta lose my glasses. And let's see if we can get something of a group here. All right, there we go. Fired 8 rounds. I think one of them went wild, and I can see a couple in the black on the sticky target down there, just barely. Let's take a look and see what we got. So let's take a look at that ballistics group. Keep in mind, guys, an M1 Garand was considered still serviceable up to 6 MOA in terms of accuracy. So it's not uncommon to see a rack grade, well-used military service rifle with an old barrel shooting 5-6 MOA. All right, so let's go ahead and load up another in-block clip. Our ice hole is now a water hole once again because it's warmed up just a little bit. Go ahead and load the rifle there. And take a shot at that white piece of whatever down there. Grab that in block so I don't lose it. Oh, and for my favorite commenter out there, I got one more in block clip full of 308. You know who you are. All right. Here we go. That white thing is still floating. Can't leave that out there. All right, and the old grill works. Every once in a while, when I am shooting it, I'll drop a 308 in there to make sure that that sleeve hasn't come out on a spent case. And if it did, I'd be looking all over for that spent case that had the sleeve on it to put back in the chamber, and then I'd have to quit shooting the rifle. The Mod 2s definitely would be the rifle to have if you wanted to shoot quite a bit with 308, not the Mod 0 like this one, because you have to, again, worry about that sleeve. And the Mod 1, not Mod 2, the Mod 1 would have a true 308 barrel in it and not sleeved. But what a beautiful piece of history. Naval history, nonetheless. Guys, if you don't get notifications when we post a new video, there's a little tiny bell icon down over here somewhere to your right as you're looking at the computer screen. Click that notification bell and you should then be notified when we post new videos. A lot of people don't get notifications because subscribing doesn't necessarily do it all the time. We hope you enjoyed coming out and learning a little bit about this really kind of unique piece of U.S. military history, naval history in particular. The Navy would go on to get M14s and M16s and so on and so forth, and then these rifles would have wound up being sold as surplus or given away as military aid. Guys, if you'd like to support us here at the Military Arms Channel, the best way to do that is to become a Patreon supporter. We take no money from the industry. We are 100% viewer supported, so we can be as honest and unbiased as anybody possibly can be because of our Patreon supporters. Link down below if you'd like to consider becoming a Patreon supporter. Also, if you'd like to pick up a t-shirt, we have a really funny new CNN shirt that's out there right now. You can go down to our link below in the description, and it's forgedfromfreedom.com. That's our t-shirt store, and order a t-shirt, and that directly supports us here at the Military Arms Channel as well. Also, swing by and check out Copper Custom, and we are Twitch gamers. If you would like to follow us on Twitch, there's a link down below. Follow that link, subscribe to us over there, and if you're a Patreon supporter, you can play with us while we stream live and join in some of that Twitch fun. Let's go ahead and load this rifle up for the last time today. Grab an in-block clip. And let's see if Jace can get a nice close-up here of how the good old M1 Garand is loaded. You take the clip, set it in there like that. Hold the charging handle back so you don't get what's called Garand thumb. It'll lock into place. Let the bolt go. Help it home. And now for the last 8 rounds. Guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for 11 years of support, and we'll talk to you soon. Oh, almost caught it. We'll see you guys later.